Good afternoon, we're Team 2 from Group 102. My name is Julieta Riesgueno and I'm gonna talk about the cell. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living beings, and they have 4 characteristics. They are highly and complex organized, they can replicate, they obtain energy, interact with the environment, and all of them have DNA. Cells can classify into prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus. That's the biggest difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic, that the DNA is in the cytoplasm with the ribosomes and all of the other things that is covered by the cytoplasmic membrane and the cell wall. The prokaryotic cells have pili that are like things outside that help them to stuck into organs. They also have a flagella that is like a tail they have at the end. And now the eukaryotic cells, they are divided into plant and animal. Both have similar characteristics, like they have nucleus and nucleolus, cytoplasm with the ribosomes, lysome, microbulus, and the mitochondria, where the energy is used to the respiratory system, and both have Golgi apparatus that combine molecules. The animal cells have endoplasmic reticulum, which produce proteins like ribosomes. Endoplasmic reticulum can be classified into rough and smooth. They are located in the plant cells. The rough endoplasmic reticulum produces proteins, while the smooth endoplasmic reticulum produces lipids. The cell is covered by a cell membrane, which is composed by phospholipids. Phospholipids have a hydrophilic head that is polar and an hydrophilic tail. On the hydrophilic tail are carbon and hydrogen. Phospholipids are joined by the hydrophilic tail, so the hydrophilic tails are in both sides, like up and down. And that's all.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Manuel Masalanya, and in this video I'll be explaining the main differences between a prokaryotic cell and an eukaryotic cell. First, with a prokaryotic cell, it doesn't have a nucleus. It does have genetic material, but it doesn't have a nucleus. It lacks of organelles. It is unicellular and is way more simple and smaller than an eukaryotic cell. And the eukaryotic cell does have a nucleus. Of course, it has genetic material, or it does have organelles. It can be unicellular and multicellular, and of course is bigger and more complex than a prokaryotic cell. Thank you very much. Today I'll be explaining the characteristics of living things. Things share 8 common characteristics. 1. They have metabolism. This means all the chemical reactions inside the body to create energy. 2. They respond to stimuli. This means that they respond to all the conditions outside themselves. 3. They grow. The information encoded in the DNA controls the growth and development of the organism. 4. They can evolve. They are capable of creating populations. 5. They reproduce. This ability is determined by the genetic material in the cells. 6. They maintain homeostasis. This means that they maintain all the conditions inside themselves. They have genetic material. The DNA contains all the information required to control the various processes that keep the organisms alive. 8. They are made out of cells. All organisms are made out of cells, which have in their insides genetic material. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Today, me, Mary Garza, I'm going to talk about the history of the microscope in the cell theory. The history of the microscope and the development of the cell theory are closely intertwined, as advancements in microscopy play a crucial role in understanding of cells. In the 1st century AD, Seneca discovered that by using a transparent spherical container filled with water, it was possible to observe small fingerprints, large and clear. This idea led to the creation of the simple magnifying glasses in the year 1000, which today is regarded as the first microscope. In the 1021 A1, Hatton published his Book of Optics, in which light is related to vision. The invention of the compound microscope is often attributed to the Dutch spectacle maker Zacharias Janssen and his father Hans in the late 16th century. They create a confined microscope with a convex and a concave lens, allowing magnifying objects between 3 to 9 times. Anton Langmuir, a Dutch scientific, is often referred to as the father of microbiology. Almost 200 years after Langmuir observed the first living cells in the 1670s, he improved the design of microscopes and achieved unprecedented levels of magnification, allowing magnifying objects to 2 to 300 times their original size. Langmuir used these microscopes to observe and describe microorganisms. He also found tiny forms of life, which he calls animal. In 1665, English scientific Robert Hooke designed a microscope made of 3 lenses, and to improve the quality of the image, he passes the light generated by another lamp, allowing a magnifying sample between 20 to 15 times their actual size. He published Micrographia in 1665, where he described the structures he observed in corn using a combined microscope. He coined the term cell to describe the small structures he observed. His creative will began the first to observe the cell. In the 19th century, the botanist Matthias Schleiden and the sociologist Theodor Swan independently formulated the cell theory. In 1838, Schleiden proposed that all plant tissues are composed of cells, and in 1839 Swan extended the idea to animals. In 1855, German physician and pathologist Rudolf Barton added to the cell theory by stating that all cells arise from pre-existing cells, emphasizing the importance of cell division in the growth and development of organisms. Louis Pasteur confirmed Bertrand's proposition with his experiments of cell multiplication. The work of these scientists leads to them to propose a series of characteristics that all cells share. These propositions that help them to unify of the cell, which is based on the following postulates. 1. All living things are made of cells. 2. It is the psychologist unit of every living being. 3. All cells come from another pre-existing cell. 4. The cell contains hereditary material. And the fifth postulate is now considered disease starts in the cell. Advancements in microscopy continued over the years with the development of more sophisticated and powerful microscopes, such as the electron microscope, enabling scientists to explore the subcellular structures and delve deeper into the world of cells. The combination of microscope advancements and the formulation of the cell theory marked a significant turning point in our understanding of life on the microscope level.
I'll be talking about the different forms of cell transportation, and not only that. First, I'll start with cell transportation. Both separated into two areas, active and passive. So first I'll explain active transport. This is when molecules move from a lower area or region to a higher region or area. And passive transport does not require energy for its molecules to move from a higher region to a lower region. For the next part, I'll be explaining various definitions, and I'll be started with diffusion. This is the process when molecules move from a higher concentration to a lower concentration area, such as passive transport. Selective diffusion, on the other hand, is the movement of molecules across a membrane from the highest to the lowest area of concentration. Osmosis is a phenomenon of diffusion of water through a semi-permeable membrane That separates two different concentrations of solute. Endocytosis is when the cell needs to acquire extensive material from the extracellular environment. It's exocytosis. In the process, the cells will release substances from their own interior to the exterior of the cell.
Levels of organization and homeostasis. The levels of organization is the relationship between atoms, molecules, organelle, cell, tissue, organ system, and organisms. We start with the atom, the smallest unit of chemical elements. The atom can be found in matter, living things, and non-living things. We continue with the next levels, the molecules. The molecules are made by a group of atoms. We continue with organelles, the part that conform the cell, that is to say, the subcellular structure of it. Some examples of organelles are the nucleus, the cytoplasmic membrane, and the Golgi apparatus. Then we have the cell, the fundamental unit of life. There are two types of cell, the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. The prokaryotic is simple and done and without a nucleus, and the eukaryotic cell is more complex and have a nucleus. We continue with the tissue, a group of similar cells that work together to carry out a particular function. There are four types of tissues: the epithelial tissue, the nervous, the muscle tissue, and the connective tissue. We continue with a set of different tissues that work together to perform a particular function. Then the next level is the organ system, a group of organs that work together to perform a task. Some examples of these systems are the digestive system, the reproductive system, and the respiratory system. Then we have finally the organisms, that is a group of organ systems that work together to perform a particular function. Some examples of organisms are the animals or the same humans. And we have the concept of homeostasis, that is the capacity of the body to maintain in balance their internal condition despite the changes or condition of the external environment. A very good example is the regulation of body temperature. When we are making a physical activity, our body starts sweating to release heat. When it's cold, we are tremble to generate heat. When we get sick, the temperature of our body rises to eliminate any bacteria or virus in our body. Thank you.
My name is Emilio Alberto, and I will explain these three topics. Pregnancy is a process that lasts 9 months in which the fetus develops. Pregnancy as a risk factor in adolescence occurs when a teenager has sexual relations. The WHO estimates that 11% of global pregnancies are teenage pregnancies. Teenage pregnancy is a dangerous process that might have some serious complications in the process, such as eclampsia, obstetric fistulas, and in addition to various diseases that come along with having sexual relations, and more with being a teenager. Addictions are considered as a disease nowadays. However, in the past, people with addictions were discriminated instead of being helped. An addiction might be both biological, when there exists a dependency, and physiological, when the need is mental, being serious condition in both cases. Obesity, finally, is a health problem that is usual around the world. Mexico is one of the most obese countries, and since 1975, the obesity has increased 300%, and it is generally because of the consumption of an excess of calories. It might lead to serious diseases, amongst those heart problems that may take the life of the person if no attention is given.